Okay. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. My name is Andres, and I will be your chairperson in today's debate, in today's grand final of this 2013 English Fest, and Mr. Andres Winterkossen will be the timekeeper. And first of all, I will ask another round of applause for the 6 debaters made it to the final. The motion of the grand final is this House would introduce tougher penalties for juvenile delinquency. And
well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the House, members of the Honorable Opposition. Today we are here to debate the motion before us. This House will introduce tougher penalties for juvenile delinquency. To begin with, I want to start by defining some of the key words in this motion by saying that, to begin with, we are going to ensure to the motion just to our country, to Argentina, so that it's not too grand. Also, I would like to define juvenile delinquency as delinquency committed by teenagers from 14 years old to 18 years old. Finally, and therefore passing to the model I will give of tougher penalties, we will define tougher penalties as penalties that are meant, obviously, to lower adult penalties to under 14 years old. And these penalties will not be tougher than the adult normal penalties. They will be the same penalties that the adults already have, but lowered down to this juvenile delinquency. Also, our issue today as a team is whether more severe punishment will result in lower rates of juvenile punishment or not. Our team led as a team is tougher penalties to make juveniles conscious. Me as a first speaker, I'm going to talk about how about the model we propose for these tougher penalties and why it is necessary to introduce these tougher penalties to juvenile delinquency. My second speaker will talk about how everyone is under the law, no matter their age, and how this is only a short-term solution and other than a long-term solution. Well, now to begin with my argumentative case, I would like to mention, for my case, that 42% of the crimes here in Argentina are made actually by teenagers. Teenagers who are inside this rate, we consider from 14 to 18, I remind you. Now passing to the USA, the United States of America, and the UK, the United Kingdom, have made proposals similar to the ones that I will give as a first speaker in my model, which have had great results in lowering this rate of law. And then it comes to the motion of consciousness, which will be branded more by my second speaker. Now, I'd like to say that this model, well, I've already mentioned it, but these tougher penalties will be the same penalties that adults already have for their crimes, the several laws that there are, but lower to the teenagers between 14 and 18. We believe that teenagers between 14 and 18 must already become conscious of their crimes and not be treated in a less severe way. They should be treated the same way. This does not mean that these teenagers who are punished by their crimes, by not respecting the law, they will be sent together with the adults. No, we believe that these teenagers should be first of all judged by minor judges, by judges who are specified in judging teenagers and minors, and they also should be sent to minors jails. These minor jails. Yes, absolutely.
Where will you get the money from?
Yeah, we're already taking care of, and I was going to explain it later in my model. But since you wanted to have that clear, we're going to take that from taxes. We already have a lot amount of money that could be taken from taxes, which would allow these jails that are not. They will be basically replacing the reformatories that we already have. So we'll be replacing one money sent to reformatories to another money sent to minors jails. It will not be a great difference in the money needed. Also, I would like to point out that, as I was saying, these minors jails will have specialists like the ones they have in reformatories, but specialists not only based in punishing the law, because the most important thing here is not punishing the minors, but also making them conscious that they have to respect the law, and also to reintegrate into society. So these jails, these minors jails, will have a specialized, will have specialists and experts in what we call social reintegration. Well, finally, I'd like to point out later that will be expanded by my second speaker, but how important it is to make teenagers conscious of their acts, since they are almost adults, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot treat them as kids anymore, someone who is 15 or 16 years old. They should be conscious and they should be aware that they must respect the law from that moment to later. And one way of doing it, we're not saying it's the only one, and later my second speaker will expand this, but one way of doing it is by introducing these minor jails. We as a proposition believe would be a great introduction. So, for all what I've said, and will be said for the debate, we strongly believe that this motion will and must stand. Thank you very much.
I now invite the first speaker of the opposition to deliver her speech.
Gentlemen, members of the House, honorable proposition, I'm the first speaker from the opposition and I'm here to make this motion fall. The motion before us today is this House would introduce tougher penalty for juvenile delinquency. I want to accept the definition given by the other team and say that our team line is tougher penalty, that we choose the carrot over the stick. What does this mean, ladies and gentlemen? We choose the carrot, which would be the education, motivation for the juvenile delinquents, instead of the stick, which would be the punishment. Me as a first speaker will develop 2 points. Criminal circle, how the juveniles will get into this criminal circle, and no money for spales in jails, ladies and gentlemen. And where will how can you finance this project? And my second speaker will talk about the education and the family, meaning the atmosphere of the child, and how can they get inserted back in the society, which is almost impossible. Our issue, as it's very similar to them, is you are not solving the problem by increasing the punishment, ladies and gentlemen. We accept that there is a problem with the teens that are committing the crime, but you are not solving this problem by increasing the punishment. Therefore, you're only making it worse, as we will prove throughout our whole case. To begin with my first point, ladies and gentlemen, and contradicting a bit what they have said, they have talked about this thing of increasing the taxes in order to get more money to take out reformatories and start implementing these jails for juveniles. Although they are projecting this for Argentina, we want to tell you that the UK uses £4 billion per year for juvenile delinquency. So what happens, ladies and gentlemen? If the UK, that has a bigger economic power, uses all this money for juvenile delinquency, how can you say that Argentina, which is an undeveloped country and doesn't have the power, the economic power that the UK has, will take the money to make all these projects, ladies and gentlemen? It's totally utopic. You cannot, although you're taking out the reformatories and you can say that you will implement that money on jails for juveniles and with other penalties in order not to put them together with adults, you don't have enough money anyway, although you raise taxes, although you take out reformatories. My second idea is that there is no money to make the jails of people, of adults who can go to jail, who are sent to jail, to be reformed or to be better or to have more security or to have even more space. Because there is not enough space for the criminals who are adults. So, if there is no enough money for the adults, where do you want to get the money for the teens, ladies and gentlemen? Accepted.
So if there's no money for these adults, we're going to get the money for education from?
I understand your point. I am saying that if you are going to make another project for making juvenile delinquents to put inside juvenile delinquents in a jail, and at the same time you want to have another jail for adults, you don't have the money. So therefore, instead of doing this, that is totally utopic, because as I said before, Argentina doesn't have, it was just an example, but it's a clear example. It's a lot of money you need to use for this. So instead of making them, punishing them, and instead of sending them to a jail, which with the not tougher punishments than for adults, but with punishments still, you're inserting them in a criminal circle, ladies and gentlemen. They won't go out of this. But that will be developed a little bit more by my second speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, instead of using this money to make the juveniles pay for what they have done, going to jail and punishing them in that way, what we are proposing is to look to the other side of the coin, ladies and gentlemen, education. By educating these teens, the juvenile delinquents, we are going to take them out from this criminal circle, which is a vicious circle in which they won't go out. And therefore, by educating them, I am not saying we're going to send them to a private school, because that will cost obviously a lot of money, and that I am not saying at the same time that we're going to spend more money on public schools and 1,000 public schools for juvenile delinquents. I am just saying that we're going to teach them, to give them education, the education we all deserve, public education, in order to take them out of this criminal circle, which is a vicious circle. They won't go out, and they won't reinsert in the society, and therefore we are saving people, we are taking them out from all this juvenile delinquency, and we are using, as we said before in our team line, the carrot that would be the education and motivating them to get a future. And you may say it is utopic to teach people that commit crimes, but it's not, ladies and gentlemen, because before they get adults and they can go to jails, you take them out from that and you save them, giving them an education, and you're going to save all these people, taking them out from this vicious circle. So, to summarize what I have said, I have talked about this criminal circle, they won't go out, and I have refuted their model by saying that the money won't be enough for making this happen. So for all these reasons, I believe this motion should, and at the end will definitely fall. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, I'm here speaking in behalf of my team as a second speaker and try to make this motion stand. Now, let me repeat to you the team that we proposed in our first speaker, which is tougher penalties to make juvenile conscious. Before I move into my consulting case, I would like to give a brief presentation based upon the matters put up by the first speaker of the Honorable Opposition. The first idea is that we never talk about denying education as an alternative to solve the problems. We always believe that education is, of course, a very proper example of a way that can be used in order to solve a problem. Yet, what we have developed in our first speech, and I'm going to talk about also later, is that we have seen that education has been used for many times throughout the years and it hasn't worked already. So, what we believe that a short-term solution is what we propose, to increase the penalties, to make tougher penalties for juvenile delinquency, to make them conscious that what they are doing is clearly wrong. And once they understand this thing, we can use long-term solutions, like for example, education. We never deny education as a possibility. Then she talked about education as being the alternative and said, okay, if we don't have the money for using the thing, your model is utopic. But you're proposing to invest money in education and you said people don't have the money. So, I mean, you're also talking about an utopical case because you're trying to do something through money that doesn't exist, as you mentioned in your speech. Now, say all this, I'd like to give it to my consulting case. The first idea is that when everybody has a name, has an age, has a personality, it is under the law, okay? You as a person work under some laws, some strict things that are stated in order for you to work in certain parameters and certain borders, okay? And you cannot exceed those borders. When you exceed them, you're breaking the law. Therefore, you're considered a criminal. You are, of course, being considered a juvenile delinquent because they're between the age of 14 and 18. We stated this age specifically because we consider that when you're already 14 years old, you're responsible for what you do, okay? Before, you were shaped by your parents and denied, and their ideas were transmitted to you, and therefore you have personality. When you're 14 years old, you can question what they said to you, and you can now begin to do the things that you believe are the correct ones. So when you're 14 years old, we believe that these people should already be judged in a court. Nowadays, nowadays the moment works in this way. 16 years old, you are going to be judged. Less than that, you're not going to be judged. We want to change this. Yes, please.
Why is the legal age 18 then, following your point of view?
The legal age is 18 because it has been established in these parameters, okay? We, of course, are trying to change this model. This idea that we propose, of course, a changing idea. We are trying to make this thing work in a different way. So, we have realized that throughout the years, this idea of sending the kids below 16 years old to the house has not worked because they have not changed. They're just in a court that said you're too young yet and there's some home. And they continue with the same plans as before. We want to change this. So we said, okay, you're 14 years old, never going to be judged. From 14 to 18, if you are called responsible for what you do, you're going to be sent to this place that we have already explained before. You're going to go to these places that are going to be violent, okay? We want to make this clear. When we talk about tougher penalties, that doesn't mean including violence towards the children. That would be, of course, not realistic. That wouldn't work, actually. Tougher penalties means to make the children realize that if they do something wrong, they're not going to just get away with it like before. They're going to face a punishment that is going to be equally, of course, to the age that they have. Now that they are people that can think, that can question what has been transmitted to them previously, they can be held responsible for what they do. Okay, let me give you another point. Our solution want to make it clear that it does not mean fear, okay? When we talk about introducing these tougher penalties, fear really is not the main issue in these tougher penalties. What is actually the main issue is conscience, okay? Because when you face something that you know you won't like to do or to live, deny, therefore you begin to question what you are doing. What our team is trying to propose to you in this debate is to make you understand that children in these ages should have in front of them what is wrong, okay? They should face the reality of what would happen if they committed these crimes. Because we have seen that we always talk about the education. We always give this beautiful speech about the ideas of education, of trying to help the children through these systems of public schools. And it hasn't worked yet. And we do not believe, I want to make this clear, that it won't work anymore. It can work. With the proper people, with the proper system, with proper functions, it can become a useful tool to solve this problem that we have said. 42% of the crimes in this country are committed by people between these ages. Yet, what we believe is that we need a short-term solution. We need a plan of action. And that plan of action includes tougher policies. Telling the children between these ages that now that they are responsible for what they do, they must go to the places they deserve, okay? So if a judge dictates a sentence, and these kids, 14, 15, 16, 17, or 18 years old, has to go to that place, he must assume, well, of course, he has to assume. He must understand that now he is facing the punishment for, of course, what he has to face. That is unavoidable. When you make something wrong, you need to assume the consequences. Education, well, is, of course, it may be useful, but it may go too many rounds and rounds and telling the kid nothing at all. This system that we propose is telling the kid the reality, what he will face if he does something wrong. And that is, of course, a starting point to a longer path. That can include education and many tools in the way. But we want to begin with something, and that something is our model. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanchez. And I now invite the second speaker of Team Opposition to deliver his speech.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Honorable Proposition, adjudicators and audience. Let me remind you of the motion before us today. This House would introduce tougher penalties for juvenile delinquency. And what are we debating today? Why are we here? We're debating whether increasing the penalty will or will not decrease crime. And the team line, the phrase in which we based our case, is that we choose the carrot over the stick. I would like to start by refuting some points given by the first speaker of the proposition. He said that they're going to build up jails for minor people, for juvenile people. So let me ask you, where are you going to take this money? Okay, taxes. Okay, you're saying taxes. So let me give you the example of the UK, the United Kingdom, is paying, as my first speaker said, £4 billion. £4 billion. And in a very developed country, to do this, to achieve this. I don't think that this is going to be possible here in Argentina.
Much information.
Denied. Also, I would like to refute the second speaker when he said that they are not talking about fear, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to be honest with you. I'm like shaking a lot because I'm very nervous. I'm very scared about this debate. Yesterday, my girlfriend broke up with me, and I'm very, very scared. So, and I'm 15 years old. How could you imagine myself? I could not even imagine myself shaking here because of a debate in a jail, ladies and gentlemen. Suffering, having the same punishment as adult people. I simply cannot imagine myself in that situation, ladies and gentlemen. And yes, they are talking about fear, even though if they don't accept it. I would like to move on to accepted.
The key part of that system that we proposed was not fear, was conscious. Of course, they can feel the fear, but they would see that what is actually being done is making them conscious of their crimes.
Yes, I will answer your point in my second argument. My first argument, ladies and gentlemen, is education and family. This ecosystem in which juvenile people live, grow, learn. So we are in the state, juvenile people are in the state of learning. They are learning every day by going to school with their parents. So if you take them to these minor jails and apply the same punishment as adults in this juvenile people, do you think that they are going to live happily like I am living? Do you think that they are going to have the same education as myself? No, denied. They are not going to be the same as a person who does not go to jail. Ladies and gentlemen, the education is going to be different. Their values are going to be different. Just because you punish them, no, thank you, let me sit down. Not just because you punish them the same way as adults, doesn't mean they're going to learn. Accept it.
We didn't say by any means that they would be the same jails. Actually, we proposed that there would be different
Yes,
jails.
I get your point. I get your point, but the punishment is still being the same. The punishment is still being the same, and the whole idea of going to jail is in fact a punishment. So the punishment from adults is being taken to juvenile kids. So jails are going to be the same, but adults and children and juveniles are not going to be together. But the idea is still being the same, because you said that you're going to apply the adults' punishment to children, to juveniles' punishment. I'd like to move on to my second argument, is that you're condemning juveniles. With 30 years old, people are being condemned to live in jail. What am I talking about? People that live in jail, that, or even spend 1 year in jail, 2 years in jail. It's very, very difficult for them to reincorporate to society, ladies and gentlemen. What am I talking about? How is a person ever going to be spending every day on a jail and then go out and just be a normal person like anything had happened? I think that the psychological damage made is much deeper than what the proposition is proposing, ladies and gentlemen. This psychological damage will mark them for the rest of their lives. And this is for 30 years old people. How do you think that person, 14 years old, 15 years old, 16 years old, going to feel of this psychological damage? So for all these reasons I just mentioned, the reasons my first speaker mentioned, the reasons that my third speaker will mention in her speech, we strongly believe as a team that this motion should and must fall. Thank you very much.
I now invite the third speaker of Team Government to deliver her speech.
Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to remind you our team line, which is tougher penalties to make juveniles conscious. My motivator is short-term and long-term measures are the answer. Okay, so I will start by refuting some points the opposition mentioned. We're so worried about money, right? We're so worried about money. We cannot find money for this, we cannot find money for that. Okay, so how are we paying for the things we have? How are we paying people to pick up our garbage? How are we paying for kids who are getting an education? Because I don't know if you guys realize, but there are people who are getting an education in Argentina, whether that is working or not. So it is costing us money already. So, well, education is not free, you know? So it is a long-term measure, and it might help in the future. It hasn't helped so far. We're not losing our hopes on education. Of course we're not. We're just saying that we need measures now. We need measures today. There are people dying. Your parents could be dead. Come on, I would bet $1,000 that anyone in this room has somehow or some way suffered a robbery from kids this age. Someone has lost someone they loved. And, well, according to the opposition, this should all be on the burden of education. Well, I am telling you that yes, education plays a major role in this. But also, there should be tougher penalties. For example, well, like the second speaker said, my girlfriend left me today. I am 15. I don't like her. I'm going to shoot her. So I go and shoot her, right? And well, other people would say, that is horrible. And yet, that kid will be able to walk in a couple of days. And he could kill your parents, he could kill your kids, he could kill your dog. And he would still be free. So that's what we as a proposition are trying not to happen. We're trying for kids that are aged between 14 and 18 to have penalties, to not be able to walk, like the second speaker said, as a normal person. Because I myself, I don't know about you, but I don't consider someone who commits crimes or someone who kills someone is a normal person and should be able to walk freely like one. And then I would like to continue by saying about this criminal circle, right? So yeah, social programs in schools could be eventually implemented so that kids learn that killing someone is wrong, right? Something that we all seem to understand, but actually 42% of the crimes are being committed by kids this age. So I don't think some people are getting the message. So education, as I said, is not free. We need money anyways.
Point of information.
No, thank you. A 5-year-old can kill a person too, right? So why did we choose 14? Because there are psychological studies that prove that a person that is 14 is already conscious of what they're doing. They know that if they shoot a person, that is wrong. They know that if they steal a wallet, that is wrong. And that is why we strongly believe that kids that age should already be paying for their mistakes. And we're not saying that they should be psychologically damaged or that they, we should ruin their lives because they did that.
Information.
No, thank you. I mean, we're not saying in any way we should ruin their lives and cause them psychological damage that will haunt them for the rest of their lives. Actually, that's exactly what we're not saying. We're saying that education will help them overcome this. But we need solutions now, okay? We need to solve this problem. There are people dying, okay? And we're not doing anything about it. And we should. Then, as I was saying, as in my point of information that the second speaker didn't let me finish, of course, the idea of a jail is the same, okay? The idea of a jail is the same for anything. But we're not saying it would be with the same concept, okay? It would have different colors, for example. What we thought as a proposition is to have jails especially designed for kids, so that they wouldn't get in this criminal cycle of learning things that criminals do in jails, as that would happen if they were with bigger people. We're saying that we need a jail, but we need to have like this message to society. We need these kids to learn that killing or robbing or whatever crime is wrong, okay? We need to do this because we're not doing it. And also, well, they said that we were condemning someone. Well, what about people who are killed, right? What about people who are robbed? Weren't they condemned to live with that for the rest of their lives? Or had they no rights at all? And then, okay, that is all I have to say about what the opposition said, and that is why I strongly believe that this motion should and will pass. Thank you very much.
I now call the third speaker of the opposition to deliver her speech.
We choose the carrot over the stick. We, as an opposition, are going to be firm to this team line because we believe that education is the answer. And we believe that investing in education, in a better education, that will be the answer. What do we have in this debate? We have a proposition that is constantly repeating, we need to solve this problem, we need to solve it, we need to solve it, there's like this huge problem here. And they solve it, how do they solve it? Jail for teenagers, jail for minors. Why? Because if they go to jail for adults, they admitted that there is violence. Let's go back in time, in the time where that proposition clearly stated that these minors think and act like adults, kill people, and rob. So explain to me how the proposition is going to be able to create these utopical, because this is utopical, jails with no violence and no psychological traumas, when in adult jails this cannot be achieved, not even in the best countries. Let's move on to my refutation. First of all, I found the point of my first point of clash. They have stated that 42% of crimes in Argentina are performed by minors. We agree and we accept that. Why is it that today there are so many crimes? Because education is not being taken seriously. We need to take seriously education to prevent, because they are thinking of something that is so short-term and so violent and so aggressive that they're not thinking of the future. Let's go back to the example of the United States, which they have provided. I think that the United States has high percentages of insecurity and people going crazy. If you don't remember all of the shoots that happened in schools, in places where minors were. And jails exist there, and why do these things still happen? Because this is not the answer. The answer is a proper education in which the teenagers will be able to learn and to be well educated and be surrounded by positive aspects. We want to solve the problem in a positive aspect. No, thank you. They also said they do not want to implement fear. They want to make children conscious. You have obviously discovered the cure to everything, because we do not know how you're going to make people conscious by sending them to jail with a lot of people who kill, who murder, who are crazy, because they're crazy, and make them conscious and not be scared.
That's information.
No. This is a punishment, and a punishment that will leave psychological traumas on the people. So instead of waiting for the action to happen and getting them into jail, and putting them into jail and seeing how they go crazy, because they will go crazy, we want to solve the problem from the root. Yes.
What you call psychological drama and change of values is actually what we call psychological change and change of values. There must be a change, of course, it must exist. And it's not a violent change, it's of course a mature change.
Right, but do you remember that you are talking about 14-year-olds? Do you remember that you are talking about people who are not mature enough because they do not have the legal age? They cannot do certain things because they are not legally old enough. So, I mean, how can you compare a minor with a 14-year-old, 18-year-old, or a 40-year-old? Moving on to the second point of clash, which was the economic position in all of this. Let's be real. Jails and security, they are very sophisticated and they require a lot of money to be invested on. How can we pay 4 billion, approximately 4 billion UK pounds to invest in a good system that will work? This is so illogical. It would be much better to invest money on education, which would be much more cheaper and much more productive. To conclude, we presented the arguments criminal circle, which is true because when you get in the criminal circle and you go to jail, it's very hard to come out. We created an investment that is cheaper and closer to reality than the one that the proposition has tried to bring about today. And we want juveniles to keep on being young and keep on living life, because they deserve to live, because if not we would have a death penalty. And we want them to go back into society and be able to be a part of society. For all these reasons, this motion must fall. Thank you.
Okay, a minute has passed, and I now invite the reply speaker for the opposition to close the case for her team.
Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. The motion for the last time today is this House would introduce tougher penalty for juvenile delinquency. What have we seen in this debate? We have seen an opposition who has presented a model in which they were going to raise money from taxes, for example, to get the sufficient money to close all the reformatories and open jails for people between 14 and 18 years old. We have clearly showed that throughout the whole debate that this is not possible, it is utopic, because we have presented a number in the amount of money that the UK uses it as an example, and we have showed that it is not possible to apply this for Argentina. We have presented also an alternative way, which is education, that you might say, oh, education is utopic because you're going to teach them, it is a beautiful model, but it won't work. But it will work, ladies and gentlemen, because there are many people who have education nowadays, as we have clearly proved throughout the whole debate, and they go in another way, in another look, in another way for their lives. So therefore we have examples in which people who have education, and as we said before, we're not going to give them private education, the best education, we're just going to give them the education they deserve in order to take them out of this vicious circle, as we mentioned before. They said that they are not going to have this, they talked about this, of sending them to different jails, but to giving them equal punishments. Ladies and gentlemen, they are between 14 and 18, they are under the legal age, and you're going to punish them the same way you're punishing adults, without them having, for example, the right to vote, which is the same as their adults have the rights to be judged, they will have the right to be judged, but they don't have the same rights. So therefore, you are dividing the jails between children jails or teens jails and adult jails, but you're punishing them in the same way. And they said that this is not going to bring psychological problems, but we have clearly showed that it will, ladies and gentlemen, because people who are adults have psychological problems, things that happened before them, they cannot reinsert in the society, and this will be even worse with people who are between 14 and 18 years old. So, for all these reasons, we believe this motion should, and at the end will definitely fall. Thank you very much.
Now I call the reply speaker for team proposition to close today's grand final.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, I'm here to deliver a reply speech on behalf of my team and close today's debate. As you know, this is the last speech of the day. And I'm honored to do this last speech, not only because I am part of this final, because I'm representing a team that is representing ideas that we must follow. Okay? Because as has already been said, surely everyone in this room has suffered from a teen attack. Okay? They have suffered from someone between the age of 14 and 18 who has done something to them in a lower and a bigger scale. Okay? The consequences is their presence. We showed you throughout this debate that there's a current system based upon the issue of education that clearly isn't working as expected. Yet, we never denied the efficiency of education in other cases. We have always stated that education can be a great tool to use to help these children re-enter into society as useful civilians. Yet, we stated at the same time that a good starting point to then later use education would be this increasement in the tougher penalties. Okay? Because we believe that these children are now conscious of their decisions, that are conscious of their actions, must be punished in such a way that they realize the consequences of the violent actions. Okay? We showed you that money can be raised, that of course it is a complicated issue. Yet we always focus on our case, on Argentina, on our grounds. We always talk about the reality, and we showed you that if we have so many different things that we can afford to do, we can afford also this. We also at the same time stated that education is of course expensive. I mean, you have to pay the teachers, you have to pay the schools, and you can pay them in covers, like they say. Okay? When you're going to establish a model, a system, you have to believe in change and the possibility of a reintroduction of a new system that can work. Okay, nowadays. So we cannot go outside this room and continue our daily lives in such a way that we believe we're not going to be attacked by these teenagers. And that will be a false assumption. Because reality tells us that 42% of the crimes in this country are done by these people. Children that are the age that we are. Okay? So we have the problem and we propose you with a solution. A solution that of course you can criticize and you can denote its flaws, you can denote all the invalid things that you can't, but at the end you can't argue. It is undebatable the fact that it is actually proposing a change that we need. A change that we, in this room, need to apply if we would like to live in a better world. Well, of course, with all the complicated things in the middle, with having to spend more money, having to reunite our forces to reach the goal. But at the end, the objective that we are pursuing is so great and so full of potential positive results that we must follow this idea. So you as judges can vote for the pessimistic way of seeing the things and just continue with a thing that doesn't work nowadays, or you can choose for our idea, our way of thinking. And it may be difficult, it may be complicated, but at the end, it's showing you that we need a change that we as Argentinians need to apply. Like it or not, is a reality, and we have the plan. Thank you very much.
Just in case it wasn't enough, I'd like to begin in the name of the three judges by congratulating the 6 debaters for making it to the final and for offering a very good debate. So, going from the general to the particular, would like to point out the three of us, we agree that there's clearly a reason why you six are here, because your styles are amazing, you're very good speakers. Going to some more specific points regarding housekeeping. I'll say this for the third time this day. We need to hear more points of information. Okay? You offered very few points of information in general, and you also accepted few points of information. Okay? So one more time, remember the importance of the point of information, not just because there is a rule that says that each speaker is supposed to offer at least 2 points of information per speech and accept 2 points of information per speech, and therefore when you don't do that, we are obliged to chop off some marks, but especially because points of information are what let us know that you're alive, okay? That you're listening to the debate, that you're willing to listen to a question, etc. On the other hand, especially considering the fact that the motion... Is this working? On the other hand, especially considering the fact that you had some time to prepare, we all thought that we could have heard some more examples, okay? Some more information. We had some statistics. We have the 42% of criminals are juvenile. We have the 4 billion pounds in England. But that was basically it, okay? So some more examples, and also it's a good habit for you to start acquiring to quote your sources, okay? Tell us how it is that you know that 42% of the criminals are juvenile, or like how much money England is spending in his education system or criminal system, and especially be very careful with phrases of the sort of there are psychological studies that have proven that. Okay, there are no psychological studies that have proven anything. Okay, so it's very important for you to say there was a study that shows this and suggests that. Okay, to give authority to what it is you're saying. Now, moving to the more specific contents of the debate. We heard quite a broad definition of what juvenile delinquency is and what tougher penalties is, which I believe is a good example of and reflects a little bit what was the major flaw of the debate. The three judges, we agree that we lack some content, okay? What it was you were talking about, okay? What it doesn't mean to have a tougher penalty. That is a jail for children that is not a reformatory. What is the difference there? What does it mean that the solution is education? Okay? Education is quite a broad thing. So if we are attacking one specific problem, which is insecurity, or more specific even, which is juvenile delinquency, how it is that you propose to solve it with education, how it is that you propose to solve it with these strange prisons for children. Okay? So, we heard on the side of the proposition, in spite of this general lack of content, the problem was addressed, a model was offered, and a solution was proposed, and it was backed up with arguments related to responsibility, to consciousness, and to the acknowledgement of the fact that we need a change for a specific situation. Okay? On the hand of the opposition, we heard the problems that this would bring from an economical point of view. Here, I would also like to make a comment in which we have agreed with the judges. Don't get so caught up with money. Okay? It's okay to raise the question, it's okay to raise the issue, but no one expects you to bring a budget and telling us, yeah, we're going to cut off 20% here of the Argentina's budget because this money, someone is stealing it, so we're going to use it. Okay? We don't expect you to be actual politicians. Okay? So, good to raise the question, don't make the debate about that. Okay? So, we heard the critique regarding money. we heard the alternative of education, but at the end of the day, what was the situation? Proposition presented the debate as a two-sided problem, okay? Which requires a long-term solution and a short-term solution. The long-term solution was debated in terms of education, but proposition strategically left it out. And opposition failed to answer the question, what do we do now? Why is it not a good idea to introduce now tougher penalties to solve the problems regarding these juvenile delinquents that we need to address? For these reasons, we believe that at the end of the day, the motion stood unopposed.